rejected by the pack, chosen by the ancient Alpha King. The forest of the Munchido pack lay in restless silence under the pale glow of the moon. Its trees were ancient and twisted, their roots sinking deep into the earth like the memories of the past. Shadows moved between the trunks, and the wind carried whispers of secrets long forgotten. Lyra walked alone along the narrow path, her bare feet brushing against the frost-tipped grass. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the forest itself weighed down her heart. The pack had turned its back on her. Once she had run alongside them, laughed with them, hunted with them. But now their eyes had been cold, their teeth bared, and their words sharper than any fang. "A curse dwells in you," the Alpha had said, his voice calm but unyielding. "You do not belong here." Lyra remembered the moment vividly. She had stood at the edge of the clearing, the silver moonlight catching her hair, her heart ready to plead for understanding, for acceptance. But the pack had only watched silently, letting her feel the sting of exile before their shadows swallowed her words. That night, the moon had seemed distant, a pale witness to her humiliation. Now she was nothing but a wanderer in the cursed forest, carrying a loneliness she could not share. Her eyes, the color of storm clouds, scanned the darkened woods as if hoping for a friend in the trees, but there was none. Only the cold, whispering winds and the distant howl of wolves far away reminded her that she still belonged to a world that had rejected her. Lyra sank to her knees beside a frozen stream. Her reflection in the black water startled her. Half wolf, half human, and fully alone, a creature without a home, a soul burdened by the knowledge that she did not fit anywhere. Her hands brushed the icy surface, feeling the sharp chill bite her skin. And then, for the first time since her exile, a voice rose above the whispering wind. It was not a voice she knew, nor one she had heard in her dreams. It was deep, commanding, yet melodic, like the echo of thunder across a mountain. "Lyra." She froze, her breath caught in her throat. The name passed through the forest like a shadow weaving between the trees. Heart hammering, she lifted her gaze, searching the darkness. A figure emerged from the woods, tall and cloaked in the night itself. The air around him shimmered with a strange light, and his eyes glowed faintly, silver as the moon. He was not a man she recognized. He was not part of the mortal world. Yet he was more real than anything she had ever known. "I have watched you," the figure said, stepping closer. The ground seemed to bow beneath his presence, and Lyra felt her knees weaken. "You walk in pain, in exile, but you do not break. There is strength in you, strength that has been forgotten even by those who call you kin." Who are you?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling though she tried to mask it with defiance. The figure paused, his gaze piercing her soul. "I am Kale, ancient Alpha King, a name spoken only in stories, a legend that even your pack believed dead." Lyra's heart leapt. Legends were not real, not in the way one could touch, one could trust. Yet here he stood, breathing, moving, commanding the air itself. "Why are you here?" she whispered. "Why watch me?" Kale knelt before the frozen stream, letting the wind swirl around him like a cloak of stars. "Because you are more than what they see," he said. "The curse that they fear, the mark that makes them tremble, it is a gift in disguise. And you, Lyra, have yet to understand its power." Lyra's mind raced. She had heard of the Silver Woods, the cursed place where spirits lingered, where mortals dared not tread, and she had wandered into it alone, without knowing why. And now, standing before her, was a being older than any story, older than the Munchido pack itself. "You speak of gifts," she said, voice edged with bitterness. "But all I have is pain, rejection, loneliness." Kale's eyes softened for the briefest moment, and she felt a warmth she had not felt in years. "Pain is a teacher," he said. "Loneliness is a mirror. They show you what you can become if you dare to look beyond fear. I offer you a choice, Lyra. Remain in exile, rejected and wandering, or come with me. Learn what you were meant to be." Lyra's heart pounded. A choice like this, it seemed impossible, almost cruel in its clarity. To follow him would mean leaving behind everything she had ever known, everything that had hurt her, yes, but everything familiar. And yet, to stay meant to wither alone, forgotten and lost. "Why me?" she asked finally, voice breaking. "Why would an ancient alpha choose someone like me?" Kale stood then, his towering figure casting a shadow across the frozen stream. "Because you have fire in your soul. You have survived what most would crumble beneath. You are not ordinary, Lyra. Ordinary cannot change destiny. Ordinary cannot awaken power." Lyra swallowed, the weight of the moment pressing her chest. She wanted to run, wanted to hide in the forest where the wind would sing her lullaby of sorrow. But something deeper, older than fear, stirred within her. A longing she had never named, a pull toward something beyond herself. I do not know if I am ready," she whispered, fear and hope warring in her chest. Kale's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "No one is ever ready," he said, "but the world does not wait. You either step forward or you remain behind, trapped in shadows that are not your own." Lyra rose slowly, her legs unsteady. She looked back toward the forest she had called home, toward the pack that had rejected her, and she felt the bitterness rise once more. She wanted to scream at them, to demand justice, to demand understanding. But she also knew she had already given all she could to those who would not see her. "I will follow you," she said, voice steady now, though her heart trembled. "But what will happen to me?" Kale extended a hand, and she hesitated only for a moment before taking it. His touch was cold, yet it burned like fire across her skin. "You will learn," he said softly, his gaze holding hers. "You will learn the truth of your blood, the strength hidden in shadows, and the destiny that awaits. But know this, once you walk with me, nothing will ever be the same. You will see wonders and horrors, and you will be changed forever." The wind seemed to roar in answer, carrying leaves and frost in a swirling dance. Lyra felt the pull of the unknown as Kale guided her deeper into the forest. Each step took her further from exile and closer to a world she could not yet imagine. The trees grew taller, darker, their roots twisting like serpents. Ghostly shapes moved among them, eyes glimmering like embers in the night. Lyra's pulse quickened, but she did not falter. She held Kale's hand, her anchor in a world that was shifting beneath her feet. As they walked, she felt something strange in the air, a vibration that resonated deep in her chest, like a heartbeat that was not her own. "What is this?" she asked. Kale did not answer immediately. His eyes scanned the forest, sharp as blades. "The silver woods respond to those who carry power," he said at last. "The spirits here, they recognize strength, and they will test you, Lyra. Not all who walk this path survive the first trial." Lyra swallowed hard. Fear knotted her stomach, but beneath it, a spark of determination ignited. She had survived rejection. She had survived exile. She could survive this. The forest opened suddenly into a clearing bathed in silver light, a place where the air shimmered with magic, where the stars seemed to reach down and touch the earth. In the center of the clearing stood a pool of liquid silver, rippling though the wind did not move. Kale stopped and let go of her hand. "Step forward," he commanded softly. "Look into the water. See yourself as you truly are, beyond fear, beyond curse, beyond the pack's judgment." Lyra approached cautiously, her reflection distorted in the silver. But as she gazed, the water began to change. It showed not her rejection, not her loneliness, but her power, a bright, pulsing energy within her, a force that called to her very soul. And beneath it a shadow stirred. Not hers. Something ancient, waiting, watching, calling. She gasped. "What is that?" Kale's eyes were fixed on the pool, unreadable yet intense. "Your destiny," he said, voice low and steady. "And the first step toward it will demand more than courage. It will demand trust, sacrifice, and a heart unbroken by fear." Lyra's hand trembled as she reached toward the water. The silver rippled at her touch, and a cold shiver ran through her bones. She felt it, a pull, deep and irresistible, like the forest itself was drawing her in. And then Kale spoke again. his voice echoing across the clearing like a command from the stars themselves. "Lyra, the choice is yours. Step forward or turn back and remain what they claimed you to be: lost, forgotten, rejected. But if you step forward, nothing will ever be the same." Her heart thundered in her chest. The moon above glimmered like a silver eye, watching her, waiting. And in that moment, Lyra understood that she could never return to the world she had left. She had already crossed the threshold between exile and legend. She took a deep breath, and with her hands still touching the silver surface, she stepped fully into the unknown. The pool shimmered violently, and a voice, not Kale's, not her own, whispered through the wind. Chosen at last. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and Lyra felt a surge of power, unfamiliar yet intoxicating, coursing through her veins. The air hummed with a promise of strength, of danger, of destiny beyond the Munchido pack, beyond exile, beyond fear. And as Kale's hand found hers again, guiding her into the depths of the forest, Lyra realized that her life had already begun to change. She was no longer the rejected wolf-born. She was something more, something ancient, something unstoppable. But in the shadows beyond the clearing, something stirred, a whisper of warning, a reminder that even legends could fall, and even power came at a cost yet unknown. And the first trial of her new life had only just begun. The fortress of Kale, the ancient Alpha King, rose from the veil of twilight like a monument carved from the night itself. Its black towers stretched into the clouds, their spires twisting like the claws of some enormous beast. Mist wrapped the fortress in silver-gray coils, and faint lights flickered within, like stars trapped behind stone. Lyra felt the weight of it pressing down as she followed Kale across the obsidian bridge that led to the main gate. Each step echoed in the still air, and each echo seemed to whisper her doubts back to her. "This place, it feels alive," Lyra whispered, glancing at the walls that seemed to breathe. Kale's eyes glimmered in the darkness. "It is," he said. "The fortress holds spirits older than any living creature. They are bound to me, yet they watch, they judge, and they will test you. You must learn to walk among them as if they were your own shadow." Lyra shivered, but not from cold. The air itself thrummed with power, a vibration she felt deep in her chest. It made her head spin, and her heart beat faster, both from fear and something she could not yet name. She wondered if she was truly ready for what awaited her inside. The doors of the fortress opened without a sound. Inside, the halls were vast, stretching far beyond what the eye could see. Black stone gleamed faintly under the ghostly light, and tapestries depicting battles, victories, and lost kingdoms lined the walls. The air smelled faintly of iron, smoke, and something sweet, like a memory that had not yet faded. Kale led her to a chamber at the heart of the fortress. The room was circular, its walls covered in runes that glimmered softly, pulsating with life. In the center stood a pool of dark water, calm and still. Lyra felt a magnetic pull toward it, the same pull she had felt in the Silver Woods. "This is where your training begins," Kale said, his voice calm but commanding. "The power within you is not simple. It is old, connected to the very roots of the world, and it will awaken only if you learn to trust yourself and me." Lyra hesitated. The word trust felt heavy in her mouth. She had been betrayed, rejected, and abandoned. Could she truly place her faith in another being, even one as powerful as Kale? Yet, when she looked into his eyes, she saw something unexpected: patience, understanding, and a hint of sorrow that mirrored her own. "I will try," she said finally, voice trembling but firm. Kale inclined his head. "Good. The first lesson is not strength, but control. Power without control is a storm that destroys all in its path. You must learn to walk the line between shadow and light, to shape the energy inside you without letting it consume you." He moved closer, placing his hands over hers as she hovered above the dark pool. Lyra felt warmth flow from him, not from his body, but from his presence, steady and commanding. And then he whispered words she did not understand. The runes on the walls glowed brighter, and the water began to ripple, reflecting not her face, but visions of places she had never seen, of battles she had not fought, of a power she had not imagined. Her heart raced. I don't understand, she admitted. Kale's gaze softened. That is because you see only what is outside yourself. Close your eyes, feel rather than look. Listen to the pulse within you, the rhythm of your own blood. Let it guide you. Lyra obeyed. She shut her eyes and focused on her heartbeat, on the warmth of Kale's presence, on the vibration in the air. Slowly, the visions became clearer, not chaotic flashes but threads of energy she could follow. She felt the strength inside her stir, not violent but patient, like a flame waiting to be tended. "You are learning faster than I expected," Kale murmured, a rare note of admiration in his voice. "But power alone is not enough. You must also understand the world around you, the creatures, the spirits, the forces that move unseen. Only then can you walk as an alpha, not as a shadow chasing legends." Lyra opened her eyes. She had never heard anyone speak with such certainty, yet without arrogance. It made her want to reach higher, to step closer to the strength she glimpsed inside herself. And yet, the shadows in Kale's eyes, the faint sorrow that lingered there, made her pulse quicken for reasons she did not understand. Days passed, though Lyra could not say how many. Time flowed differently in Kale's fortress. Some hours felt like minutes, some nights stretched into eternity. She trained with Kale, learning to summon sparks of energy, to bend shadows to her will, to hear whispers in the wind that spoke of distant lands and ancient conflicts. With each lesson her power grew, but so did the bond between them, subtle at first, a glance that lingered too long, a hand that brushed hers, a voice that carried not just command but attention. And yet, beneath it all, a question gnawed at her. Was Kale showing her kindness because he believed in her, or because he had plans she could not see? The thought both frightened and intrigued her. One evening, Kale led her to a balcony that overlooked the veil of twilight. The mist rolled like waves across the mountains, and the stars hung so close they seemed within reach. The wind tugged at Lyra's hair, carrying with it a scent she could not name: smoke, rain, earth, and something older, something eternal. "You've changed," Kale said softly. "In a week you have learned more than most do in a lifetime, but there is still a shadow in your heart, fear, doubt, and something else." "What is it, Lyra?" Lyra turned to him, unsure if she could speak the truth. I don't know if I can belong anywhere," she admitted. "Not with the pack that rejected me. Not even here, though I am learning. Sometimes I feel like I am standing on the edge of everything, but nothing will ever truly be mine." Kale regarded her quietly. Then, with a grace that belied his strength, he reached out and took her hand. "Belonging is not given, Lyra. It is claimed. And sometimes, to claim it, we must first walk through fire, through shadow, through the very fears that hold us back. You are on that path now, whether you know it or not." Her chest tightened, and she found herself searching his face, looking for answers she could not name. The wind seemed to hold its breath, and for a moment the world was nothing but the two of them, a girl who had been rejected and a king who had been forgotten by time. I am afraid," she whispered. Kale's eyes softened, and he lowered his head until their foreheads touched. "Good," he said. "Fear reminds us that we are alive, that we care, that we can still choose even in a world that seems determined to take everything from us. Do not despise it, learn from it, let it guide you." Lyra nodded, a single tear tracing down her cheek. She could feel something inside her shifting, an acknowledgement that maybe she was not as alone as she had believed. And for the first time, the thought of walking beside someone else, of trusting another, did not terrify her entirely. That night, the fortress whispered to her. She heard voices in the halls, faint and distant, yet strangely familiar. They spoke of past kings and queens, of battles lost and won, of spirits bound in loyalty and vengeance. Lyra could feel them watching, judging, waiting. And somewhere beneath it all, she felt Kale's presence, steady, unwavering. The following morning, Kale led her to the inner sanctum, a hall lined with mirrors that reflected not faces, but choices, paths, and destinies. He gestured toward one mirror that shimmered with an inner light. "This," he said, "shows you what could be if you embrace your full potential, but it also shows what will happen if you falter. The path of power is never straight, and shadows always lurk behind the brightest light." Lyra gazed into the mirror. At first, she saw herself as she was small, uncertain, carrying the weight of rejection. Then slowly, the reflection shifted. She saw herself standing tall, her wolf form glimmering with silver energy, eyes burning like embers, commanding both respect and awe. And behind her, Kale stood older, stronger, a figure of legend but no longer distant. He was a companion, a guide, a presence she could no longer ignore. Her breath caught. "I could become this?" she asked. Kale nodded. "If you dare. But understand this, the shadows you see behind the light are not illusions. They are real. They are doubts, fears, enemies, and consequences. To walk this path is to risk everything, even me." Lyra's heart pounded. She wanted to ask what he meant, but the words stuck in her throat. There was a weight in his gaze that made her chest ache, a hint of something dangerous, of secrets he did not yet reveal. And somehow, she knew that whatever came next would change everything, not just her power, but her heart. Days became nights, and nights became lessons. Lyra trained until exhaustion blurred her senses, but even in weariness, she felt the threads of power connecting her to the world and to Kale. She sensed his moods, his intentions, even his unspoken fears. And he in turn watched her every move, every hesitation, every spark of defiance and courage. And then, one evening, as the moon rose high above the fortress, a shadow moved beyond the walls. Lyra's senses prickled. Something unseen, something ancient, had entered the veil. She looked at Kale. He did not speak at first. His eyes were distant, narrowed, alert. "They are here," he finally said. "The spirits that guard the silver woods have come to test you. They recognize your power, and they will not be kind." Lyra felt a surge of fear and anticipation. She had come so far, learned so much, yet the thought of facing these spirits alone made her knees shake. Kale stepped closer, placing a hand over hers. "You will not face them alone," he said. "But know this, tonight you will see both the beauty and the danger of what you have become, and when you emerge, you will never be the same again." Lyra nodded, tightening her grip on his hand. The fortress seemed to hold its breath. The shadows beyond the walls stirred, whispering promises and warnings alike. And in that moment, Lyra understood the bond she shared with Kale was no longer simple training or guidance. It was trust, reliance, something deeper and far more dangerous. The first spirits approached, their eyes glinting like molten silver, their forms shifting and dark. Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding, her energy rising, ready to face what awaited her. And as the first shadow lunged, she realized something profound. The path ahead was not just about power. It was about understanding, connection, and the unspoken bond that had begun to grow between her and the ancient Alpha King. The trial had begun. And nothing would ever be the same. The night air was heavy with mist, thick as smoke, curling around the fortress of Kale like living fingers. The veil of twilight shivered under the moon's pale light, and the forest beyond stirred with restless shadows. Lyra stood at the edge of the inner courtyard, her eyes sharp, her body tense, every nerve alive with anticipation. The spirits of the Silver Woods had arrived, as Kale had warned. Their forms shimmered like silver mist, their eyes reflecting every fear she had ever felt. Kale's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, steady and firm. "Remember," he said softly, "power is not only strength. It is choice, control, and heart. Use all three or you will fall." Lyra nodded, her pulse hammering. She had trained for this, yet the fear gnawed at her. Every shadow could become a threat. Every flicker of light could hide danger. And yet beneath her fear, a spark of determination burned. She would prove herself, not only to Kale but to herself. The first spirit moved, a creature of silver smoke and eyes like molten metal. It lunged at her with a speed that made her heart seize. Lyra focused, summoning the energy Kale had taught her to command. Shadows bent around her, wrapping her in a protective shroud. The spirit struck, but she held her ground, feeling the power within her respond, shaping and twisting to her will. "You are stronger than I imagined," Kale murmured, watching from the edge of the courtyard. "But the trial has only begun." Lyra drew a deep breath and stepped forward. She met each spirit, each attack, with precision, control, and a courage that surprised even herself. The spirits twisted and changed, testing her in ways she had not anticipated. Some attacked with force, some whispered doubts, planting visions of failure and fear. But with each moment she learned. She moved with grace and power, her mind and body becoming one with the magic that pulsed through her veins. Hours passed like minutes. Exhaustion crept into her muscles, but she refused to yield. She could feel Kale's presence behind her, steady and unwavering, a pillar of strength she clung to in the chaos. And then the final spirit approached. It was larger than the others, darker, its form more defined, yet still shifting with shadows. Its eyes bore into her soul, and Lyra felt a cold fear pierce her heart. "You have come far," Kale said quietly. "But the last test is not strength, it is choice. Are you ready?" Lyra's hands trembled, but she nodded. The spirit moved closer, its form swirling like liquid smoke. It whispered her name, twisting it into a song of doubt and despair. "Lyra, you do not belong, you will fail, leave, turn back." Lyra clenched her fists, drawing the shadows around her like a cloak. "No," she said firmly, "I am not afraid. I will face what comes, and I will not fail." The spirit lunged, striking with a force that knocked her off balance. Pain seared through her arm, but she focused, bending the shadows to shield herself. Energy coursed through her, brighter and stronger than ever. She stepped forward, meeting the spirit's attack with her own, a pulse of silver and shadow that rippled through the courtyard. Kale's voice rang in her ears, calm but commanding. "Now, Lyra, embrace it." She did. She let the power inside her surge, letting it flow freely, controlled by her will and tempered by her heart. The spirit shrieked, twisting violently, then dissolved into silver mist that vanished into the night. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted, gasping for breath. Her body ached, and yet a new strength surged through her veins, a knowledge that she had faced fear and survived. Kale knelt beside her, his hand on her shoulder, eyes filled with pride and something she could not name, a shadow of emotion that made her chest tighten. "You did it," he said softly. "You have passed the trial." Lyra tried to smile, but her exhaustion was too deep. I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. Kale shook his head. "No, you did this. I guided you, but the strength was always yours. Remember that." "Always." For a brief moment the fortress was silent. The mist swirled gently around them, and the moonlight bathed them in silver. Lyra felt a warmth she had never known, a bond that went beyond guidance or power. She wanted to reach for him, to speak the words that lingered in her heart, but the moment passed, replaced by a shadow that stirred beyond the walls. Kale stiffened, his eyes narrowing. "Trouble," he said, "and it comes from the pack you once called home." Lyra's stomach twisted. The Munchido pack, they had rejected her, cast her out, and yet why would they come now? "They are angry," Kale explained, "and they do not understand the power you now hold. Some will see you as a threat, others as a betrayal." Lyra felt fear rise again, but it was mingled with resolve. "Then I will face them," she said. "I will not run again." Kale's gaze softened, and for a moment he looked almost human, almost vulnerable. "Good. But be warned, Lyra, power can save, but it can also destroy. You must choose your actions carefully, or you will bring pain not only to yourself, but to those you wish to protect." The next day, they descended from the fortress to the ruins of the Munchido Pack's territory. Smoke still lingered in the air, evidence of battles fought long before Lyra's return. Wolves emerged from the shadows, some cautious, some angry, all watching her with wary eyes. Lyra's heart ached at their sight. This had once been her home. She had dreamed of belonging here, of being accepted. But now she knew she could not ask for that. She had changed, become something more than they could understand. "Lyra," Kale murmured, standing close, "remember what I told you. Control choice heart. Do not let anger or sorrow guide your actions." She nodded, taking a deep breath. "I understand." The pack approached cautiously. At their head was the alpha who had cast her out, his eyes wide with disbelief and fear. "Lyra," he said, voice trembling, what are you?" Lyra lifted her chin, meeting his gaze with calm strength. "I am what I have always been," she said, "but stronger, and I have come not to destroy but to protect. If you threaten what I care for, I will act. But if you choose peace, there is a chance for us to move forward." Some of the pack looked away, ashamed. Others growled, suspicion and fear clear in their eyes. And then, a sudden movement, a wolf she had once called friend lunged at her. Lyra moved instinctively, shadow energy spiraling around her, deflecting the strike. The wolf recoiled, snarling, and then with a final hiss backed away. Kale stepped beside her, his presence a shield and a warning. "I am with her," he said quietly. "Do not test her further." The alpha hesitated, then stepped back, the weight of his past decisions clear in his posture. We will not forget this," he said. "But perhaps there is more to you than we realized." Lyra's heart ached, but she held her resolve. She had faced rejection, fear, and now the pack's judgment. She would survive this as she had survived everything else. But even as the tension eased, Kale's face darkened. "This is not over," he said. "Something stirs beyond the pack, something older, more dangerous. I feared it would come while you were unprepared, but perhaps it is time to face it." Lyra's pulse quickened. She had grown in power, in confidence, but she still did not understand the full scope of the dangers ahead. The shadows of the forest whispered secrets she could not yet hear, and the wind carried hints of betrayal, loss, and sacrifice. That night, Kale led her to the edge of a cliff overlooking the forest. The moon cast silver light over the trees, and the mist swirled like restless spirits. He turned to her, expression unreadable. "Lyra," he said, voice low, "there is a choice you must make, one that will test your heart, your loyalty, and your courage. To follow me further, to embrace your full power, you must sacrifice something precious, perhaps more than you are willing to give." Lyra's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Kale's eyes softened, a shadow of sorrow behind them. "Power is never free. Every gift comes with a cost. To walk beside me, to claim your destiny, you will face moments where your choices will hurt those you care for. You will see betrayal, whether by others or even by your own hands. And yet, it is the only way forward." Lyra felt her chest tighten. She had faced fear, she had faced rejection, and now she would face sacrifice. The weight of destiny pressed on her, and yet beneath it, a spark of determination glimmered. "I will do what I must," she said, voice steady, "even if it means pain." Kale reached out, taking her hand. "Then we begin," he said. "And know this, Lyra, whatever comes, you are not alone. We face it together." The wind rose, and the mist of the forest swirled violently. Shadows stretched like reaching hands, and in their depths, Lyra glimpsed a darkness older than time, waiting, watching, and judging. The trial had begun, and the path ahead demanded not only strength and courage, but the willingness to sacrifice everything she held dear. Lyra looked into Kale's eyes, and for the first time she understood the truth. She had been chosen, yes, but being chosen came with a price. And as the first shadow emerged from the mist, larger, darker, and more terrifying than any she had faced before, she knew one thing with certainty: the night ahead would test every part of her, and she might never return the same. The forest lay silent, bathed in the silver glow of a pale moon. Mist drifted between the ancient trees like living spirits, curling and twisting, as if carrying whispers of 1,000 untold stories. Lyra stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the veil of twilight. Below, the ruined lands of the Munchido Pack stretched like a scar across the earth. Smoke still curled from broken huts, and the howls of wolves echoed in the distance, raw and uncertain. Kale's hand rested on her shoulder, steady and unwavering. His presence was a calm center in the chaos, a constant against the swirling unknown. His eyes, silver as moonlight, held a storm beneath their surface, sorrow and hope tangled together. "You have come far, Lyra," he said softly, voice barely above the whispering wind. "But the true trial has yet to begin." Lyra swallowed, the weight of destiny pressing on her chest. The spirits of the Silver Woods had tested her, the pack had doubted her, and now the darkness beyond the pack stirred. The shadow that Kale had warned her of lingered in the forest, growing stronger, hungrier. She could feel it, ancient, malevolent, drawn to the power that pulsed within her. "I am ready," she said, though her voice trembled. "I have faced fear, rejection, betrayal. Whatever comes, I will not falter." Kale's gaze softened, a shadow of admiration and relief crossing his features. "Good, but know this, the path ahead demands more than courage. It demands sacrifice, wisdom, and a heart willing to bear both grief and hope." The wind shifted, carrying a chill that burned against her skin. From the forest emerged a figure cloaked in darkness, its form more shadow than flesh. Its eyes glimmered with hunger, reflecting centuries of anger and malice. Lyra's heart tightened. This was the ancient darkness Kale had feared, a force older than any pack, older than any king, older than the world itself. Kale stepped forward, placing himself between her and the shadow. "Do not let it see fear in your eyes," he said. "Stand with me, Lyra. Together we can face this." Lyra nodded, drawing the shadows she had learned to command around herself. Energy hummed in her veins, silver and dark, light and shadow entwined. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation. The darkness struck first, a wave of cold that threatened to swallow the world. Lyra felt it coil around her, testing her resolve, whispering doubts into her mind. "You cannot win. You do not belong. You are weak." She clenched her fists, summoning her strength. "I belong to myself," she said firmly, her voice echoing through the trees. "I am not weak." The energy within her flared, a silver light pushing back the darkness. Kale moved beside her, his own power rising, a storm of shadow and moonlight. Together they faced the ancient force, two beings bound by trust, strength, and something deeper, a bond forged in pain, survival, and shared destiny. The shadow lunged, striking Kale with a force that sent him sprawling. Lyra gasped, fear tightening her chest. But she could not let it overwhelm her. She stepped forward, her powers rising in intensity, shaping the air around her, bending the darkness to her will. "Kale!" she cried, rushing to his side. The shadow hissed, eyes narrowing, sensing her rising power. Kale struggled to his feet, pain etched across his face, but he smiled faintly at her. "You are ready," he said, voice strained. "Do not hesitate. You can end this." Lyra felt the full weight of the choice before her. To strike now, to command her power fully, could defeat the darkness, but it might also consume her if she lost control. Her heart trembled, but she remembered Kale's lessons. Strength without control is destruction. Courage without wisdom is recklessness. Drawing a deep breath, she let go of fear and doubt. She embraced the power inside her, the gift that had once been called a curse. Shadows and silver light entwined around her like wings, spiraling outward, meeting the ancient darkness head-on. The forest trembled. Trees bent as if bowing to the clash of forces. The air vibrated with energy, and Lyra could hear whispers of spirits, long silent, rising in awe and fear. The darkness shrieked, a sound like ice breaking and fire burning at the same time. But Lyra held firm. She would not yield. Kale joined her, their powers intertwined, a harmony of shadow and light. Together they pushed the darkness back, step by step, heart by heart. Lyra felt a moment of connection, a sense of unity she had never known before. She was not alone. She was not an outcast. She was part of something greater, a force capable of shaping destiny itself. And then, in a final surge, Lyra reached into the core of her energy, calling forth every lesson, every hardship, every moment of pain and strength. The light flared, blinding, and the darkness shrieked one last time before dissolving into silver mist, scattering into the wind. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted, trembling, tears streaming down her face. The forest was silent again, the veil of twilight calm, as if the world itself were exhaling. Cale knelt beside her, gently lifting her chin with one hand. "You did it," he whispered. "You faced the darkness and you prevailed." Lyra looked at him, her chest heaving. "We did it," she said softly. "Together." Cale's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability crossing his features. "Yes, together." For a long moment they simply held each other's gaze. The bond between them, forged through trials, trust, and unspoken emotions, was stronger than either could deny. And in that quiet, a sense of peace settled over them, fragile yet real. The next day, they returned to the Munchido pack. The wolves watched cautiously, still wary, but the fear in their eyes had shifted to awe. Lyra had changed. The pack had changed. And in that moment, the walls of rejection began to crumble. The alpha approached, eyes lowered in respect. "Lyra," he said quietly, we were wrong. You were never weak. We did not see your strength." Lyra's chest tightened. Forgiveness was not easy, but she had learned that power and courage came not from hatred or revenge, but from understanding and choice. "It is not enough to see strength," she said softly. "You must choose to honor it, to respect it, and perhaps then we can begin again." Some wolves bowed their heads, others lingered unsure, but the air of change was unmistakable. The pack that had rejected her now recognized her not only as powerful, but as a leader in her own right. Cale remained at her side, a constant reminder of the trials they had faced and the bond they shared. Lyra felt a warmth she had never known, trust, connection, and the understanding that some bonds were stronger than fear, betrayal, or doubt. But the world was not yet quiet. Even as the pack began to heal, whispers of the veil lingered, hinting at powers beyond mortal comprehension. Lyra sensed them, the lingering shadows of spirits and forces older than time, watching, waiting. She did not fear them now. She had faced fear, embraced power, and chosen her path. As the sun rose over the ruins of the Munchido pack's territory, painting the sky with gold and crimson, Lyra and Cale stood together on a hill overlooking the forest. "You have grown," Cale said, voice soft, almost tender. "You are no longer the girl the pack rejected. You are a force, a legend, a guardian of both shadow and light." Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes shining. "And you are not the legend I feared. You are more human than I imagined, strong but capable of caring." Cale inclined his head, a shadow of a smile crossing his features. "Perhaps we have both changed," he said. They stood in silence for a while, watching the world awaken. The forest breathed, the pack stirred, and the veil of twilight shimmered in the distance. Lyra felt a deep peace within her, a sense that she had claimed her place in the world, and that her destiny was hers to shape. And yet beneath the calm she knew the truth. The world was full of shadows, and legends never truly rest. The veil whispered, soft but insistent, hinting at new trials, new mysteries, and new adventures. Lyra looked at Cale, determination in her eyes. "Whatever comes next," she said, "we face it together." Cale's hand found hers, strong and warm. "Together," he echoed. The wind carried their words across the forest, over the ruins of the pack, and into the veil beyond. A new chapter had begun, one of redemption, courage, and unbroken bonds. Lyra had faced darkness, embraced power, and found her place in a world that had once rejected her. And as the moon hung high above, silver and eternal, Lyra knew one truth above all. Some destinies are chosen, but the greatest ones are forged by heart, courage, and the bonds we dare to trust. The forest whispered its approval, the pack stirred in wonder, and the shadows of the ancient world waited, not to frighten, but to challenge, for every ending was only a beginning in disguise. Lyra stood tall, Kale at her side, and together they stepped forward into the future, a bond of shadow and light, legend and heart, unbroken and eternal.